Hey everyone, and welcome to Keys to Knowledge. I'm Daniel.
I'm Sarah.
Sarah, today we're diving deep into Plato's Republic.
Yeah,
It's this text that's been, well, sparking debate for centuries now.
it really has.
Yeah, and it grapples with some seriously big questions. Questions that I think still resonate with us even today.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
what is justice?
hmm
What makes a good society? What does it even mean to live a good life?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's amazing how relevant it remains. Right from the start, Plato kind of throws us into this dialogue, right? Where Socrates is wrestling with the very definition of justice,
Okay.
and he meets the sophist character who makes this really bold claim
Okay.
that justice is simply the advantage of the stronger.
Whoa, okay, so right away we're in a power struggle here.
Right.
This sophist, he's not messing around, and his argumentative style is almost aggressive.
It is, yeah.
Like he's trying to force this cynical worldview on Socrates.
Yeah. Exactly. It's almost like he's saying might makes right.
Yeah.
And that really sets the stage for the whole dialogue, right? It makes you question, like, is justice really just whoever's in charge gets to decide?
Yeah.
Then we get to hear from other characters too, who offer their own takes on justice.
Okay.
Things like paying debts and telling the truth, or helping friends and harming enemies. You know, on the surface, they seem pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, almost too simple.
Right.
And of course Socrates, he isn't satisfied with easy answers.
Never.
He never is. So he uses these thought experiments,
Yeah.
right? To challenge those definitions.
He loves to do that.
Yeah, would it be just to return a weapon to a friend who's gone mad?
Right.
And suddenly things aren't so black and white anymore.
Exactly. And I think those thought experiments, they really force you to think beyond just those initial assumptions,
Yeah.
to consider like the nuance of a situation. Like, wait, maybe justice isn't just about following, a set of rules, but understanding the context
Yeah.
and the potential consequences.
It makes you realize how much our understanding of justice relies on specific situations
Absolutely.
and how tricky it can be to come up with some kind of universal definition.
For sure.
Then to illustrate this point about
Yeah.
about true leadership and justice,
Yeah.
Socrates introduces this powerful analogy.
Right.
He compares a just ruler to a physician and a shepherd.
I love that analogy. What's
Yeah.
what's so fascinating about it is how it shifts the focus, right? From power and control
Okay.
to care and well-being.
Oh, interesting.
Like a good doctor aims to heal, right? Not to exploit their patient's illness.
Yeah.
A shepherd prioritizes the health of their flock, not just, their wool or need.
So he's saying that true leaders should be motivated by a genuine concern for the people they govern. They're not in it for personal gain or just to wield power. Makes you think. How many leaders today actually fit that description?
Right. It's a high bar.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us to Plato's next move, I guess you could say.
Go.
He realizes that defining justice, like in the abstract, is really hard.
Okay.
So he decides to build this ideal state,
Oh, wow.
this republic, as a thought experiment
Okay.
to see how justice might actually function, on a larger scale.
So instead of just talking about it, he's like, all right, I'm going to create this whole society from scratch.
Exactly.
I'm guessing it's not going to be your average democracy.
No, not quite.
Okay.
Plato's republic is very meticulously structured.
Okay.
He envisions these different classes, right?
Yeah.
Each with their own specific roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
And at the foundation, you have the producers, right?
The producer.
The farmers, the artisans, the merchants.
Okay.
Basically everyone providing those basic necessities.
Makes sense. You need people to keep things running. The essential workers.
Exactly.
Keep society functioning.
And then you have the guardians who
Those-
are responsible for defending the state, maintaining order.
So like the warrior class.
Yes, your warrior class.
Okay.
But Plato has some, let's say, unconventional ideas about how they should be trained and how they should live.
This is where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
This is where he proposes this incredibly rigorous physical and mental training regimen.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, the guardians should live communally,
Communal.
like without private property or even families.
It's radical. I mean, no personal possessions, no family ties.
Yeah.
Everything is dedicated to the state.
It raises all sorts of questions about, individual versus collective needs and whether such a system could actually work in reality.
Yeah, could it?
It's hard to imagine like giving up that much for the sake of the state. But Plato argues that this communal living is essential, right? For the
Yeah.
guardians to develop the right virtues
Mm-hmm.
and remain, completely dedicated to their role.
No distraction.
No distractions, no divided loyalties.
Right.
It's like they're living in a constant state of boot camp,
Yeah.
completely focused on their duty.
But even with this highly structured system,
Yeah.
Plato recognizes that you need something to unify the citizens, right?
Okay.
To give them a shared sense of identity and purpose.
Which is where he introduces this idea of a noble lie.
A noble
It's
yeah.
essentially this foundational myth,
Right.
This story that everyone believes, even if it's not entirely true, to create this cohesion and stability.
And that in itself is a fascinating commentary, right?
Yeah.
On the power of narratives and how they shape our worldview.
Oh, for sure.
It makes you think about like the stories we tell ourselves as a society, right?
Yeah.
And how they influence our values and actions.
Definitely.
It's like are we aware of the stories that are shaping us?
Yeah. So we have the producers,
Right.
we have the guardians, the system of education,
Mm-hmm.
and shared beliefs.
Yeah.
But that still leaves one big question.
What's that?
Who governs the guardians themselves?
That is the question.
Even the most dedicated warriors need guidance and leadership.
Exactly.
Right.
Someone has to be at the top of this meticulously designed structure.
Yeah.
And that is where we get to the concept of the philosopher kings.
Ooh.
But I think we'll save that for the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back to Keys to Knowledge.
All right. So last time we kind of left off with this big question. Who guards the guardians?
Right.
Who's actually in charge in Plato's ideal republic?
Yeah, it's a crucial question. You can have the most well-trained, dedicated guardians, but without wise leadership, even the best intentions can go astray.
That's where the philosophy thing's coming, right?
Right.
Plato, he envisioned them as the ultimate rulers.
Yeah.
They're not just, intellectuals pondering these abstract concepts, but individuals with practical experience and the wisdom to actually govern effectively.
It's almost like this perfect blend of contemplation and action.
Yeah.
Finding someone who embodies both of those things is incredibly rare.
It's true.
I mean, think about it. How often do you meet a deep thinker who's also a strong, capable leader?
Right. Like it's like trying to find a unicorn. And even if you did find this philosopher king, wouldn't they face enormous challenges? I mean, the temptation of power, it's strong.
It is.
And there would likely be, resistance from people who don't want to be, ruled by, a philosopher.
But it makes you wonder if Plato is being a bit too idealistic,
Yeah.
And it raises another question too. Do we as a society even value wisdom in our leaders?
That's a good point.
Do we even recognize it, when we see it?
Yeah. Are we more drawn to charisma and power than wisdom and integrity?
Right.
But remember, Plato he's not just building this elaborate republic for fun, right? He's trying to understand what makes a just individual and a just society.
Right.
And he sees this deep connection between the two.
Oh, interesting. So there's this parallel between how a society functions and how an individual person functions.
Exactly.
Okay.
So just as the republic has those three classes, right? The producers, the guardians, and the philosopher kings.
Right.
He suggests that the human soul also has three parts: reason, spirit, and desire.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
Okay, so think of reason as the part of you that makes those wise decisions, right? It's logical. It seeks knowledge.
Yeah.
It considers those long-term consequences.
Okay.
It's like the philosopher king of your mind.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Then there's spirit.
Spirit.
Which is your drive, ambition, courage, the energy that kind of pushes you forward.
So spirit is like those guardians defending what's important to you.
Yeah.
Okay, what about desire?
So desire is all your basic needs and wants.
Yeah.
Food, comfort, pleasure.
Right.
It's It's what keeps you going day to day, like the producers keeping society functioning.
Okay, so for a person to be truly just, these three parts, they need to be in harmony.
Yeah.
Like in the Republic, where each class plays its role and they all work together.
Exactly. A just person is someone whose soul is balanced.
Yeah.
Reason is in charge. Spirit provides the drive.
Yeah.
And desires are fulfilled responsively, right?
Correct.
Without taking over.
It makes me think of all those little internal struggles we have.
Right.
Like, you should make the rational choice, but your desires are screaming, but I want this.
We've all been there, right?
Yes.
And Plato believed that education was key
Yeah.
to developing that inner harmony.
Okay.
He emphasized not just, learning facts,
Right.
but shaping character, cultivating virtue.
It's not just about what you know,
Yeah.
but who you become through the process of learning.
Right. And Plato believed that certain forms of art like music and poetry
Mm-hmm.
could have a huge impact on character development.
Interesting.
He was particularly interested in the emotional impact of art.
Okay.
And in fact, he thought that some art could actually encourage, unhealthy emotions and behaviors.
Hold on, that sounds a little controversial.
Yeah.
Was he basically saying that we should censor art?
He did believe that there should be some level of censorship,
Okay.
especially for young people. He thought it was crucial to protect them from potentially harmful influences.
Right.
For example, he wouldn't have allowed stories about the gods behaving badly,
Oh, interesting.
because he didn't want young people to think that was acceptable behavior.
I can see his point,
Yeah,
but part of me thinks, oh, didn't he go too far?
it's a tough question.
Like who gets to decide what's harmful?
Even today, we struggle with this, right?
Yeah.
Balancing freedom of expression with protecting people from potentially damaging content.
It's a tough one.
It's fascinating to see that Plato was grappling with this very issue
Yeah.
thousands of years ago.
Right. It shows how seriously he took the power of art and stories
Yeah.
to shape our understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Speaking of understanding the world, you mentioned something called the divided line earlier. I'll admit that one always puzzled me a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more abstract ideas in the Republic,
Okay.
but it's a really powerful way to think about how we acquire knowledge
Okay.
and how we move from opinions
Yeah.
to true understanding.
Okay, walk me through it.
Okay, so imagine a line
Okay.
divided into 4 sections.
Okay.
Each section represents a different level of knowing.
Okay.
At the very bottom is what he calls imagination.
Imagination.
This is where we deal with images, shadows, reflections.
Okay.
Like those prisoners in the allegory of the cave,
Right.
who only see, shadows on the wall and
Right.
mistake them for reality.
So they have a very limited understanding of the world because they're only seeing those surface level appearances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we move up to belief,
Belief.
where we interact with the physical world directly. We see objects, touch them, experience them through our senses.
Okay.
It's a step up from imagination.
Right.
But we're still, relying on our senses.
Okay.
So our understanding is still limited.
Okay. So I believe this table is real
Mm-hmm.
because I can see it and touch it,
Yeah.
but I haven't really thought deeply about what makes it a table. Its essence.
Exactly. And that
Right.
brings us to the third level thought,
Good.
where we start moving beyond the purely physical realm.
Okay.
And using reason and logic
Yeah.
to grasp abstract concepts.
Okay.
This is where math and science come in.
So we're starting to think about ideas,
Yeah.
and principles, not just what's right in front of us.
Right. And finally we reach that highest level,
Okay.
understanding.
Understand.
This is where we grasp those true forms, the essence of things, like the concept of justice itself.
Wow. So it's a journey from the concrete to the abstract,
Sure.
from relying on our senses
Mm.
to using our reason to see those deeper truths.
And it connects back to the philosopher king,
Oh,
right? They're the ones
yeah.
who can see beyond those shadows, right?
Yeah.
And guide others towards that towards that greater
Yep. Yeah,
understanding.
they've climbed to the top of that divided line.
Yeah.
But, Plato, he doesn't just focus on building this ideal state.
Right.
He also looks at how real world governments function,
Mm.
and more importantly, how they can go wrong.
Yeah.
He describes this whole cycle of governments,
Okay.
each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
It's like he's saying that no system is perfect, and
Right.
even good systems can decay over time. He's not just interested in finding the ideal form of government,
Right.
but understanding the dynamics of power
Yeah.
and the pitfalls that even well-intentioned leaders can fall into.
Okay, so he's not just a utopian dreamer.
Right.
He's got this realistic, almost cynical side to him too.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear about this cycle of governments.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin? Welcome back to Keys to Knowledge.
All right. So
Okay.
before we wandered off into that abstract world of the divided line,
Yeah.
we were talking about how even well-intentioned governments,
Yeah.
they can go off the rails.
They can. It really makes you wonder if any system is truly immune to corruption or decay.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And it's something that Plato, he tackles this head on in the Republic.
He does.
He outlines this cycle of governments,
Right.
each with its own,
Yeah.
set of pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have this tendency to decline and transform into something else.
So it's not a matter of finding that perfect system, right?
Right.
And calling it a day. There's this
Mm-mm.
there's this constant evolution, this push and pull between different forms of government.
Exactly. He starts with what he considers the best, the most ideal
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
Aristocracy.
Aristocracy.
Literally ruled by the best, those wise philosopher kings
Right. Right.
that we talked about.
So the most capable, the most virtuous individuals are at the helm. Sounds promising, but even in this ideal scenario, how do things start to fall apart?
Yeah.
What causes that decline?
Well, Plato suggests that even among the best,
Yeah.
divisions and problems can arise over time.
Okay.
Personal ambition might creep in,
Yeah.
greed or a lust for power.
So even those who are initially driven by reason
Yeah.
and a desire for the common good, they can be tempted, they can lose their way.
They can
Their own inner harmony gets disrupted.
precisely. And,
Yeah.
and as that happens,
Yeah.
aristocracy, it might transition into timocracy,
Democracy.
where honor and military glory
Okay.
become those dominant values.
Okay, so if Plato were analyzing today's world,
Yeah.
what societies do you think he might point to as examples of democracy?
Hmm.
What kind of warnings would he give us?
That's a great question. He might look at societies that prioritize military strength above all else,
Okay.
where leaders use patriotic rhetoric to justify their actions,
Okay.
or where there's this constant need for conquest and expansion.
Wow.
The danger, as Plato saw it, is that this love of honor and martial prowess, it can become excessive,
Right.
blinding people to other important virtues.
And potentially leading to unnecessary conflict and suffering.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even values that seem positive,
Mhm.
like courage and patriotism,
Yeah.
they can become destructive when they're taken to an extreme.
Yeah.
Or become the sole focus of a society.
Absolutely. And that's how Plato saw democracy.
Right.
Obsessed with power and expansion,
Mm-hmm.
eventually morphing into oligarchy, ruled by a wealthy elite.
So we go from rule by the best to rule by the strongest to rule by the richest. I have a feeling this doesn't usually end well for everyone involved.
You're right. In an oligarchy,
Yeah.
economic inequality runs rampant. That gap between the rich and the poor, it widens,
Yeah.
creating tension and resentment.
Right. You have the poor struggling to survive,
Yeah.
resenting the elite while the rich are obsessed with protecting their wealth and power, constantly afraid of losing it.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for instability and conflict.
Exactly. And eventually that tension, it boils over. People demand change. They yearn for more equality and a say in how things are run.
Okay.
That's where democracy enters the picture.
Okay, so on the surface, this sounds like a positive development, right?
Right.
More freedom, more participation.
Yeah.
Everyone gets a voice.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Right.
Why was Plato so wary of democracy?
Well, here's the thing. Plato was actually quite suspicious of democracy.
Oh, wow, okay.
He saw its appeal, the promise of freedom and equality.
Yeah.
But he also saw its potential to descend into chaos and instability.
Hold on, that seems counterintuitive. How could a system that gives power to the people lead to chaos?
He worried that in a pure democracy, decisions would be swayed by popular opinion,
Okay.
which can be fickle,
Right.
and easily manipulated.
Okay.
He feared that people be swayed by emotional appeals rather than logic and reason.
So he was concerned about the tyranny of the majority,
Right?
where the loudest voices, even if they're not the wisest or the most informed, they can drown out others and lead to poor decisions.
Exactly, and that's where things can take a dark turn in this cycle from like democracy to tyranny.
So in a way, democracy, with its emphasis on individual freedom and expression, it can actually pave the way for its own downfall.
That was Plato's fear. He envisioned this scenario where amidst the chaos and uncertainty of a failing democracy, a charismatic leader emerges.
Right.
This leader promises to restore order,
right,
to fix everything, playing on people's fears and anxieties.
It's the classic demagogue.
Yeah.
Exploiting people's anxieties to seize power. And sadly, we've seen this play out throughout history, haven't we?
It's a timeless pattern.
It is.
And by appealing to those basic desires for security and stability, this leader can consolidate power, ultimately becoming a tyrant.
So we've come full circle.
Yeah.
We started with this ideal of philosopher kings,
right,
then went through this whole cycle of decline, ending up with the very antithesis of a just ruler.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bleak picture.
It does make you wonder if even the best systems can fail. If a tyrant can just grab power, and disregard justice, why even bother trying to be good? What's the point?
That's a question that still haunts us today.
Yeah.
If injustice seems to prevail, why should we strive to live virtuously?
Well, Plato, he argued that even though being just might not bring external rewards, it's still the most fulfilling, and ultimately the happiest way to live. Remember those three parts of the soul:
reason, spirit, and desire.
Right. He believed that when reason is in control, and your desires and ambitions are in check, you achieve a kind of inner harmony that a tyrant consumed by their passions could never experience.
So true happiness, it doesn't come from external things like power or wealth, but from living a virtuous life guided by reason and wisdom.
Exactly. It's about that inner balance, where your actions are aligned with what's right, not just what feels good in the moment.
That's a powerful message. But it's hard to shake that feeling of, well, what if the bad guys win?
Right. To address that, Plato ends the Republic with this vivid story. The myth of Ur. The myth of Ur. It's about a soldier who dies in battle. But then comes back to life. And recounts his experiences in the afterlife. He describes seeing souls being judged, the good rewarded,
Yeah.
the unjust punished,
Okay.
and then they get to choose their next life.
So it's like this cosmic reset button.
Yeah.
You get to see the consequences of your choices,
Yeah.
and then make a new choice about the kind of life you wanna lead.
Right. And what notices is that many souls, even those who suffered for their bad deeds,
Yeah.
end up making the same mistakes,
Uh-huh.
choosing similar lives,
Right.
because they're still drawn to the same temptations.
It's a reminder that we're all susceptible to those desires, those patterns of behavior.
Mhm.
True wisdom is about breaking those cycles, learning from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and making choices that are aligned with our higher selves.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of self-reflection,
Yeah.
of constantly examining our motivations,
Yeah.
and striving to make choices that lead to a just and fulfilling life.
Well, Daniel, this has been a truly incredible deep dive into the Republic. We've covered so much:
Yes.
the nature of justice, the structure of an ideal society, the potential pitfalls of different forms of government, the human soul,
Yeah.
even life after death.
It's amazing, yeah.
It's amazing how much ground Plato covers in a single work.
It really is. And it's a testament to the enduring power of these ideas that we're still grappling with them today.
We are.
Definitely
Yeah.
are.
So as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me is the importance of constantly examining
Yeah.
our own values and motivations.
Yeah.
What drives our actions?
Right.
Are we guided by a genuine desire for good,
Mm-hmm.
or are we chasing, power, wealth, fleeting pleasures?
Right.
The Republic, it challenges us to cultivate those essential virtues.
It does.
Wisdom, courage, temperance, those
Yeah.
those qualities that lead to a just and harmonious life.
Yes. And another crucial point is that tension between individual freedom and the common good.
Right.
Plato, he shows us that even in a democracy where
Mhm.
where individual liberty is paramount,
Right.
we can't lose sight of our responsibility to the larger community. Our
Yeah.
choices, they have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And finally, I think Plato reminds us of the incredible power of stories
Mm-hmm.
and ideas to shape how we see the world.
Yeah.
Whether it's the noble lie that holds his republic together,
Right.
or the myths and narratives that we encounter in our own lives, we need to be aware of how those stories influence our beliefs and actions.
It's a call to be critical thinkers, to question the narratives we're told,
Yeah.
and to actively choose the stories that guide our lives.
And on that note, a huge thanks to all of you for joining us on Keys to Knowledge.
Thanks, everyone.
We always love to hear your thoughts. So let us know
Yes.
what you think about Plato's Republic.
Yeah.
And how it connects with you today.
Yeah. Share your ideas.
Share your ideas. Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
Together, we'll keep unlocking the world's possibilities.